Hello, let me start by asking you a question. If you ask them, what animal do you think your friends would say best describes you? For example, would you like to be described as a lion? Strong and brave, can handle anything. Or perhaps you'd like to be likened to a dolphin, something that moves fast through the water and is known to be really clever. Or maybe you'd like someone to describe you as an eagle, strong but graceful, able to rise above everything. Now I'm sure many of us would be happy with any of those, but if someone to describe you as a sheep, well, that might be a bit different. Few of us would want to be a sheep because they have a reputation for being a bit dopey, but that's how the Bible chooses to describe us. Well, today, in the first of two sessions looking at Jesus saying, "I am the good shepherd," we're going to think about why the Bible describes us as sheep and why we all need a shepherd. Oh no! Tax collectors and sinners were all crowding around listening to Jesus. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law of Moses started grumbling, "This man is friendly with sinners. He even eats with them." Then Jesus told them this story. "If any of you has 100 sheep, and one of them gets lost, what will you do? Won't you leave the 99 in the field and go look for the lost sheep until you find it? And when you find it, you will be so glad you will put it on your shoulders and carry it home. Then you will call in your friends and neighbours and say, 'Let's celebrate, I found my lost sheep.'" Jesus said, "In the same way there is more happiness in heaven because of one sinner who turns to God than over 99 good people who don't need to." Although some people disagree, there's no getting away from it. Sheep aren't known for being very clever. In fact, some would say that they're one of the doziest of all animals. But it's not totally their fault. Take, for example, their eyesight. The position of a sheep's eyes means they can see all around them on each side, but they find it difficult to see straight ahead because their nose gets in the way. They're also short-sighted, meaning they end up following whatever is closest to them, and they can't spot danger ahead. There are stories of whole flocks of sheep throwing themselves off cliffs, which seems pretty silly, but the first one falls and then all the rest follow because they can't see the problem. Before you know it, the whole flock has thrown itself over the cliff. Sheep follow the crowd, not recognizing the danger. Sheep love to graze and will move from patch to patch, and will even go through gaps in hedges to get to the next one. They could be in a field with everything they'd ever need, like food, water, protection and shelter, and they will still go through a gap in the hedge, even if it takes them somewhere far worse. And sheep aren't very brave. It's hard to get close to sheep because they see you coming and run away. But sometimes they don't even do that. Instead of running, they simply freeze, making them an easy target for animals wanting to have them for lunch. And if sheep end up on their backs, they find it almost impossible to get back up. It's a big problem when it rains because their skin can become itchy and they just want to scratch, so they roll over and never get back up again. So sheep can't see far enough ahead to spot danger. They often follow the crowd and wander away even when they have a good thing going. They need a shepherd to guide them, to protect them from themselves and other dangers, and to care for themselves. How could the Bible possibly say we're like sheep? Well, have a listen to some verses.
The Lord is our God, and we are his people, the sheep he takes care of in his own pasture. I have wandered like a lost sheep. Look for your servant, because I have not forgotten your commands.
We have all wandered away like sheep. Each of us has gone their own way. But the Lord gave him the punishment we deserved.
Jesus said, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd gives up his life for his sheep.
The Lord their God will save his people on that day, as a shepherd saves his flock. Last time we talked about God's kingdom as a pasture, full of everything that we need, a place of safety and comfort, a place where we'll be looked after and cared for. And all we have to do is to ask God to forgive us for turning our backs on him, and to believe in all that Jesus did by dying on the cross. Jesus, who is the gate, through whom we can be forgiven, through whom we can enter into God's pasture. Isn't that something we'd all naturally want to do? Well, no. From the moment we're born, the Bible tells us that we're lost sheep, away from God and in need of rescue. As we heard in the story that Jesus told, he is the good shepherd who looks for his sheep. And when he finds them, he carries them on his shoulders back to safety. But not all of us want to be rescued. Like sheep, we can't see far enough ahead to understand all that God has waiting for us through Jesus. Instead, we want to see what this world has to offer, and we try to manage by ourselves. But all the time, like sheep, we're wandering further and further away from God. Like sheep, we simply want to follow the crowd. We want to fit in and do what everyone else is doing, even when we know it's not the best thing. We forget that the crowd often isn't going towards God, but is taking us further and further away from him. We don't see the danger ahead, that one day it will be too late to turn back and make it through the gate into God's pasture. There are even those who start off heading in the right direction towards God's kingdom, but then they simply wander away, sometimes for no obvious reason. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, came to seek and save the lost. He never gives up on calling out to his sheep, reminding them that however far they've wandered, it's not too late to turn back and to allow him to lift him on his shoulders and to take them back to safety. We've all wandered away like sheep, but we have a good shepherd who loves us enough to lay down his life for us, and when we recognise his voice and call out to him, he promises to save us. In the Bible, there are only two types of people: those who are lost and those who are found, who've heard the Good Shepherd's call, asked for forgiveness, and accepted Jesus as their Saviour, and are living now in God's abundant pasture. Which one are you?